Right. All right, guys, how you doing? My name is Tim Black. I want to welcome you all to another edition of Tim Black at Night Show. Thank you for being here, and boy, do I got a show for you. Today, I have a special guest, a guest who is going to talk about migration, immigration, migration, and those people coming from the South America to the United States and the perils that they face. Now, we know this has been in the news a lot lately, but I believe that it hasn't been told very accurately. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this with my friend and my guest, Dr. Tuur Ghys. Give it up for Dr. Ghys. Tuur, thank you so much for taking time out, man, and joining us tonight.
My honor to be here.
Absolutely, man. Same here, my brother. And as I was saying offline, a lot of folks seem to be talking about immigration and migration and people from South America, but I don't think they talk about it from a position of actually having any firsthand experience or firsthand knowledge or actually interacting with people. They just sort of talk about it theoretically. So one of the reasons, man, I'm so happy to have you on the show tonight is that you actually have spoken to people who have gone through this process. Dr. Tuur, would you mind explaining a little bit about what you do?
Well, many things. I'm a professor in politics, but part of my research is about migration. Let me explain this a bit. I live in Monterrey, which is a city of about 4 million in the north of Mexico, below Texas. So we live at the very end of the journey that migrants take from Central America if they try to reach the border. And there we interview people basically every Sunday in a shelter when they just arrive, and we talk to them about their imaginary of the journey. So how they thought the journey would be, how they thought it would go, what they think about the United States, those kind of questions, and what information they have about that. That's what we do.
Oh, I see. So their trek, part of their trek, they end up at your destination where you are. Why are you interviewing them? In what capacity are you working with these people?
What do you mean by that? Sorry.
Well, like, so are you a part of like a team of people that I don't know, that meets these people? Like, why are you talking to them? Why are you working for like the school or?
No, so this is a research project. Actually, it's funded by nobody. It's funded by me and my wife. And we have a small team of students that come with us. We go to that shelter. We try to ask that. Our goal with this is the following. These people have all kind of ideas of how it's going to be. And we think if we can learn more about their sources of information they have, we can advise them better on what to do. Not just if they should leave or not, but also what route to take, what to plan, who to trust. All those kind of questions are life or death questions, and they're all about information. And we try to gather as much of that as possible. Got it.
It's just so amazing. So you are doing this because this is research for you, and this puts you in this position where you can get the direct information from people instead of Tuur, when I watch the news, when I hear people talk, when I hear Sean Hannity, people on Fox News, they paint these pictures of these people who are all drug dealers. You heard Trump. Okay, drug dealers,
we all did over here,
rapists, and all these things, and some of them are good people. Like, you remember that. So that's the idea. And then we hear the Democrats say, "No, these are great people," and so. But you are meeting the actual people that they speak of. Very rarely I've never met anyone who's actually done what you've done. So, what kind of stories? What are they telling you, Tuur, when you meet them?
Well. What do you want to know about why they're leaving, about their journey, about? Yeah. So let's talk a bit about the motivations, right? I think the main idea that you have, or that Americans have, is that they come primarily out of poverty.
That's true.
To get a job,
yes.
Which is true, but it's not the first reason. The first reason why they come by far is out of insecurity. So what happens is that and this is particularly, so what countries are we talking about? There's Guatemala, it's El Salvador, it's mainly Honduras, Nicaragua. For example, in the case of Honduras, most people come, let's say they have a shop, a telephone shop or something, or a hot dog stand. And they have to pay, as everybody there does, they have to pay to the local gangs, the Magas, MS. You've heard of them. And one day they might miss a payment. And what happens then is that these gangs come to their house and they tell them you have 24 hours to leave the country, not just your house. That's one scenario. The other one is they're not in debt to the mob, but their children are out in the street and they try to recruit their son. And the son says no, which is a good choice, of course, to say. Then they'll come to your house, they tell you, look, either your son joins MS or you need to get out of here. You have 24 hours to leave. And that threat is very real. So some people try to leave to another city, but they'll find you. And if not, they will kill you. We talked to a guy this Sunday whose father went to US a couple of years ago, got deported because of this reason. He went for security, he got deported and he got shot on arrival back to Honduras. So it's very real. That's the number one reason why people leave. They're running from insecurity. And well, they could go to a number of countries, not necessarily US, but everybody I talk to is trying to get to US. That's one reason. The other reason is, of course, poverty. This is more in the case of countries like Guatemala, which are quite neoliberal and poor. So there you have mainly farmers and very low educated people who earn next to nothing and who think, look, if I do the same farm job in US, I can earn more, I can put a roof over my mother's head, or I can feed my children, etc. That's the standard group. And then you have a third group, a bit smaller, which is about family reunion. Let's say a mother who tries to follow her sons, for example, who are already there. Those are the main reasons.
Those are the main reasons. Yeah, it's in stark contrast to what we hear. I've never heard about the security issue. Whenever I hear it discussed, like you said,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's always framed, Tuur, as if, well, these people are just looking for jobs. And when you say security, I'm thinking safety. I'm thinking life or death in the scenarios that you just painted.
Yes.
Not just theirs, maybe their families' lives.
And also misunderstanding. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
This is that it's not that these people plan to stay in US. In few cases they want to. Mostly they want to work there for 5 years and get back. Because they either have a very romantic image, but in most cases they understand that their life will not be flowers, let's say. But they try to earn, let's say, enough to buy a house and then come back.
Oh, I see. So earn the money in the U.S., send the money back, keep them. I've heard this too. Earn the money, send the money to their family, and then come back.
Yes, that's common. Yes.
Okay. Wow, that is a different story than what I've been hearing as far as the security. When you talk about poverty, you have any examples of what type of poverty we're talking about? I talk about poverty in the U.S., but my understanding is that's nothing compared to the poverty in, say, Honduras or El Salvador.
Yeah. So poverty, you would talk about $3 a day type of scenarios that people would have. And that's not just, that's Mexico too. Mexico has 53% poverty. And it is not that hard to be. We have extreme inequality too in all these countries. So the lowest classes, it's a realistic gamble for them to try to come. And sometimes they have very unrealistic expectations. Most people know what's happening, but for example, some people are illiterate, but they think they will have an office job in US because they saw that, I don't know, on Friends or The Office or some show. So that's already where information plays a kind of a role. But most people, especially if they're family members in the US, they know what's happening. They know that we're working in a field or in some kitchen, living on the ground, and then trying to send the money back. But the poorest and most ignorant people don't always know this.
So they watch TV. That's what America's the main exporter of entertainment. So we export these shows, and they go, oh, this is what life is like, and this is what my life could be. and then they come to America if they make it. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that journey to the United States or anywhere in North America. What's that like for them?
Well, there's two parts to the journey that I will talk about separate. First is the crossing of the border, right? There I want to directly argue with our friend Donald a bit. So Trump makes it look like it's just an open border, right? Like Mexico has no southern border, so the border with Guatemala has no policy, and he's partly right but mostly wrong on that, in the sense that we don't have a wall with Guatemala because we don't hate them as Mexicans, right? They're our neighbors, and there's a lot of traffic going on. So you could walk over there. This, by the way, this is jungle, so it's not that easy to stop it there. But Mexico does have an awful lot of border security behind the border. So you could cross, and Fox can probably find a picture of somebody crossing easily, but they will catch them. Most likely, it's a very high chance of getting caught. My colleague here estimated that about 90% of people crossing eventually get caught and sent back. Nice. So it's a total lie that Mexico has no migration policy or anything in place.
You said 90%.
At the border, right?
At the border.
But they just get sent back. They can try again. It's not like these people never get through. But the border exists, let's say it like that. It's not perfect, but we have other problems to solve besides putting all our military at that border.
Right, right.
So once you cross that, and by the way, I want to also say not all people that cross that are so-called illegal. You can get a tourist visa if you live in Honduras. You say, I want to see a football game in Mexico City, and a lot of people do that. Then you can get that tourist visa, and then you're just a legal person in Mexico. So the government has no business in deporting you, right? Just like you can buy a plane ticket to the United States and overstay your visa. That happens all the time.
Right.
But once you cross it, then it begins. So Trump likes to portray it as if this is a walk in the park. Like you walk through Mexico and then you reach the border. And that's why you need the wall, right? The beautiful wall. What he doesn't realize is that Mexico is the wall. Mexico stops people either by sending them back or by disappearing them, killing them, wounding them. But let me offer you the following metaphor just to introduce this even. If you try to cross as an illegal immigrant from the southern border to US, it's like playing Russian roulette. The only difference is it's slightly safer to play Russian roulette than to try to do this. So if I may, I'll explain this a bit further. So you have a whole spectrum of horrors that can happen to you. At the soft end of the spectrum, you have assault and robbery. So most people get robbed at some point in this journey. Almost all people get robbed unless they take the bus and they don't meet anyone. They get robbed at some point, either by police force themselves. So they will threaten to arrest you, and then they say, okay, give us your money and we'll let you go. Or most likely by organized crime. And in that case, and then get assaulted in that case. In the best scenario, you wake up in some hospital. If not, you wake up naked in the jungle somewhere without anything. And that happens to most people we talk to. But that's the light end of the spectrum. Next, you would have rape. Rape is a very big issue here. The network of shelters estimates that between 80 and 90% of women get raped during this journey. So to repeat that, over 80%, over 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 women that reach our point have been raped. Mostly by organized crime. You have some rare cases of police, but mostly it's organized crime, particularly Zetas, Los Zetas, or notorious cartel on the East Coast. And this can happen for example, it happens on the train a lot. There's a few routes people can take. People jump on a cargo train, that's very common. That takes them to US or at least to the middle of Mexico. Or people can walk, which is the craziest option. They can pay a smuggler to drive them. Or in the best case, they take the bus. That's relatively safe. And in terms of not dying, it has a high chance of getting caught, but you'll survive it. So people jump on this train, cartels will come in, they will rape women. If they resist, they kill you. That's common. Worse, and this is a bit sensitive maybe to your audience, worse is forced orgies, when these drugged out cartel members force people to rape each other, for example. In the worst case, their own family at gunpoint. This happened too. So my assistant once talked to a person who was part of one of these groups, and she saw a young guy being forced to have sex with his aunt. And another guy, he refused, and they raped him with the machine gun they were threatening him with. These kind of all kind of really crazy things that are hard to believe if you don't hear them in first person. There's all kind of things that go on in the jungle and on these trains. So most women get raped at some point, or at least assaulted. But they're still surviving. So when we go up the scale of terror, next what's going to happen to you is if you disappear. This could either be if you are on the wrong side of the law, but most likely it will be because of cartels. So women can disappear into sex trade, human trafficking. Men can get recruited by cartels forcefully. They're strong. They'll get the choice to join them or to die. And sometimes people will be kidnapped and locked up, and they will ask their family for ransom. For example, my wife at the very beginning, she talked to a lady who was traveling by bus, which is a good choice, but she was at the bus station and she wanted to eat something. So she crossed the street, and there she got pulled into a car, and for the next 7 months she lived in a dungeon of the Gulf cartel. So in a basement below some house. I think they did not rape her. I don't remember the reason. Maybe she was pregnant or something. But, and then they tried to call your family, and you have to pay the money and such. She escaped eventually because she could convince the wife of the guy that was holding her to release her. And then she ran, well, to us. Not to us, but to Mexico City and then to Monterrey. So that happens to you. And then in the worst scenario, you die. So there's a lot of ways to die on this journey. You can have natural causes. Well, natural causes that could be, and those are actually the saddest. If you die by snakes or scorpions, or in my personal opinion, the saddest stories are when people die of thirst or sunstroke. So in the desert, for example, we talked to some guys that just arrived to the shelter, and we started asking them questions and who they were traveling with, and said, well, we were a group of 6 people. But we had to leave 3 guys behind last week because they couldn't walk anymore. They were totally dehydrated and they were left for dead. Because if you stop and you care too much about them, you're going to die yourself. So this is, I think it was a bit too fresh for them to be traumatic.
Right.
So this happens, and on the worst case, you get killed by other people, mainly cartels. Again, on this train, it happens. That, for example, they will enter a wagon. There's not normally people sit on the roof, but sometimes there's wagons, and they'll start raping the woman. And if they resist, they kill everybody. So these stories, we know, of course, we don't talk to dead people. We know them from people in the wagon next to them that they heard this. Or you could fall off the train and get decapitated. Or if you're working class, you lose an arm, which is the same as dying, and you throw your head behind the tube to finish it. So those stories all exist. So my point, I don't want to get into this misery porn type of thing.
Right.
But my point is that it's absolutely false that it's an easy journey. It's incredibly hard to reach the northern border. and to get, and then you still need to cross it and get the US and get past your homeland security, etc. So it's not easy at all. A lot more people try it than actually make it.
Understood. Tuur, I want to thank you for, for detailing that, because I think people may not, of course it's uncomfortable to hear it, but it's the reality of what actual human beings are going through on their journey. So people need to know that. Can we talk about this perception of people being drug dealers? That they come into America to get rich by selling heroin, methamphetamines, or opiates, or what have you, cocaine, whatever it is. Is that the people that you've interviewed? Are these working class people, or are these drug dealers? Frankly,
they're separate problems. So, drug cartels obviously exist in Mexico, and they run all your drug trade in US. And you buy cocaine and you sell us arms, and that's kind of the circle, right? AR-15s go back into Mexico, cocaine goes into US. These people are not migrants. These people living on the border, they're professionals, they have submarines, they have tunnels, they're not part of this crowd. The people we talk to, well, it's mixed, right? Most of these people are actually running from those folks. So they're farmers, they're people who own shops, they're accountants. Not all are lower class, by the way. But yeah, so okay, yeah, we talked to, I think, one guy who was part of a gang at some point, but he was not even planning to go to US. He was trying to stay around the border. And you have human smugglers that we now and then run into because they mingle, but they're not drug dealers. So that exists. Mexican cartels definitely play a role in US, but that's a separate problem. That's a separate crowd.
Understood. I believe you so much. I mean, I was thinking this earlier today as I was preparing for this conversation, and it just didn't make sense that we group these people together. Obviously, there are going to be people who are coming here for various reasons. Of course, I had no idea the dire straits that these people find themselves in. But I just thought logic would dictate that there would be people that there would be separate people. There's no nuance when the story's told in mainstream media for the most part. There's no nuance of what's going on. Also, Tuur, very rarely do I hear people depict the actual reasons for people coming to this country. I hear political prisoners. Have you dealt with any people who are running from persecution from their government?
Have we? Maybe one case or so. Okay. But there would be so people are not running from persecution. People are running from, let's call it, trouble. So elections in Middle America are an eventful thing, let's say, with riots and such. And depending on which party won, maybe somebody wants to get out of there. But that's not, at least not most people we've talked to.
Okay. Okay.
Of course, they exist. But in that case, by the way, Tim, if that was the reason, they didn't have to do this because they could claim asylum, which is a human right. And they could claim it in Mexico or Panama or Canada. Some people try to do that. So if you have an actual story of political persecution, there's a legal way to do this.
Okay. 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 Just going back to how it's been depicted in the media lately. Here goes a good question. Now, I'm aware of the fact that there were a lot of deportations under Obama. Mm-hmm. I do recognize that under Trump, it has accelerated even further. Were you there during the Obama years? I don't know how long you've been in Monterey, but were you witnessing this then as well?
I was not there at that point. I was, but we were not doing this research.
Okay.
It has always existed. So we talk to people who've been deported 4 times, but they will try because, for example, you have a family, the father's out to buy, I don't know, cigarettes, police catches him in that moment, they deport him, but his family's in the US. He will not give up. He will keep trying because that's his life, right? Another thing about Trump I can say is that we asked people actually about this. We asked them, do you know Donald Trump? And what do you think about the wall? Have you heard of the wall? And we have met nobody that is scared of the wall. Because you must imagine, these people have been through everything I just described. So the wall and even the army is not the biggest fear, right?
Right.
Besides that the wall isn't there yet, but so this will not stop them. It might stop them, but it won't deter them from coming, at least.
Oh, right. They're going to still attempt to do it. I mean, what you just described, it makes perfect sense. Someone's picked up their family, they're living in the United States, and they get deported, and they have families still there. What are they going to do? Of course, they're going to try to come back to be reunited with their family if they can. And that could be something that you do for the rest of your life. Always try to get back to your family. I mean, that's a basic human tenet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I want to mention for your audience who are of mixed political views, right, that I'm not defending migration. That's not my agenda. My concern, or our concern, is their safety primarily, and just the rule of law, respect of human rights, respect of rule of asylum. I understand Americans being frustrated at people competing for their jobs, etc. But it's just a lot more complex issue with a lot more pain involved in it from the other side that is never talked about.
Absolutely. But I do appreciate you, mentioning that. But very rarely is it ever spoken about in this way, Tuur. The motivation of immigrants from Middle America. I know I've heard about Honduras. I've heard about Trump trying to deport hundreds of thousands. It's not just Mexico, hundreds of thousands of Latin Americans from different countries within Latin America, like subsections, like I think it was El Salvador, like whole groups of people for really no reason. And we hear a lot about Mexico, but we don't hear a lot about the other countries of people. Mm-hmm. I don't know why that is.
Well, first of all, there's more Mexicans. Mexico is a bigger country, so there are more Mexican immigrants. The story is a bit different. I know less about that. There's also a longer history of that. Okay. Part of it is simple ignorance, and not to insult your audience, but Americans have a hard time discriminating between different countries. They're all Latinos, right? But they're different countries, really. They share speaking Spanish, but and knowing where those countries are on the map is a different thing. So some people, it's all Mexico to them, right? Puerto Rico is Mexico too, in some sense, right? So that has to do with it. And another fact is that this is also not reported a lot within Mexico, because we don't want Trump to get angry at us. So we will try to downplay our own migration. At least not we, the government. It's not the issue that's popular within Mexico either, talking about this transnational migration.
What about the factors that cause the migration? Like to me, that's more of the issue. I mean, for these countries, the situation that people live in, that they would go through this. It's horrific.
Yes.
I don't know how to better explain it. I mean, I've heard, I don't know if you know Abby Martin. She's a great journalist. I know she covers a lot of important issues affecting Latin America. But very rarely, and she's not on America, she's not on corporate media, she's not on Fox News or MSNBC or CNN. She has to work for, I think it's Al Jazeera, or it's
those are the ones. Al Jazeera, Telemundo.
There you go.
Those will be the ones that sometimes cover this. Yeah.
Right. I feel like I'm not asking enough questions. I'm just so floored by the plight of the people and what they go through to try to get a better life. Frankly, I don't know what else to say.
Or just to live.
Yeah, just to live.
I do want to mention one more thing.
Sure.
If allowed. About Trump's use of the word caravan. Not caravan. Yeah, the caravan.
Yes. Of
people that he's been tweeting about. This kind of summons the idea of an organized group, like when you go to see football together with buses or something, right? Like it's a group of people, they all know each other and they're gonna travel. I've never heard of this, ever. Neither from people directly nor from human smugglers, that this is how they do it. So most people travel in very small groups, let's say 6 to 10 people. Maybe Fox News was able to see a lot of people together at the same time, just like, you know, when Walmart opens and people are in the entrance, but that doesn't mean they're a group.
Right.
They're just there at the same time. So maybe you see people jumping on a train, but they don't know each other. So there's no such thing as a 1,000 people caravan that starts somewhere and travels together and that must be stopped, let's say. I think Trump simply made that up.
Wow. Wow. He said, Tuur says no caravans of people. No caravans of people that are trying to escape country, come to the United States. Another thing that's very striking, and I want to go to Facebook. I want to look and see if there's some comments, some questions. If you have comments or questions for Tuur, go ahead and put them in your Facebook comments, and I'll read them out off to him. Where you pointed out in the beginning, if anyone missed it, Tuur was describing how people are forced to leave. Like if they don't pay protection money in their country, these bandits will force them to flee. They have to not leave the block, they have to leave the country or be killed. So Tuur, that is exactly what you said, right, Tuur?
Yeah, and I can understand some people in the audience might not believe this because it makes no sense for the gang to ask this. And for me, this was hard when I started hearing this to understand it. Like, why would you ask people to leave if you prey on them? It's like a drug dealer shooting his own junkie. You don't do that, right? But they do it, and it's a very, very common story, not just by me, by other research, by American research. This is well documented. Because
Yes.
these gangs are not cartels. Cartels are bigger, smarter organizations that do drug trafficking. Local gangs are, no, I don't want to get shot, but
right.
bunch of dudes doing crime. There's not always a bigger plan behind that.
Got you. And someone just corrected me. They said that Abby Martin, she works for Tail Soar. Tail Soar is the company. I checked the map. It looks like it would be 15. Chris Newton says, how much time have you actually spent on the border, not in the border city, but out in the bush where the action actually is? I guess that's a question.
I have not done that. I have not been to the US border. So Monterrey is in the north, but we're still about 200 kilometers of desert between us and the border. I've been to the border, but not for this research. We might want to do that in the future, to go to Laredo in Texas and see if we can talk to people there. But this is not our main.
Right. So the people that you meet actually still have a ways to go.
Yeah, we are the last main stop. So Monterrey is one of the richest cities in Mexico. So this is where they come to catch a breath, earn the money that they lost from being robbed, work a bit, and then they go for it from there. Or they stay. Sometimes they like it in Mexico and they try to stay.
Wow. Penny Davis, I don't know if this is a question, but Penny says, immigrants are not the problem. Illegal immigration, and it's illegal immigrants, and they complete political tools and cheap slave, politically ignorant. I don't know. Penny, I can't read your comment here. She's kind of condemning the system, I guess, or the way that they're being played up in the media, so to speak, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jennifer Vickers says, yeah, Tuur doesn't have a death wish. You can't blame him. Yeah, Tuur, as you were speaking, I was wondering, like, what can you say that's safe for you to say? I mean, you have a wife. I'm sure you would like to be here tomorrow. you don't want to put yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
So the people. So what do they do? So they meet with you. They tell your story, Tuur. You do this great work. What is the hopeful outcome of your research, Tuur?
Well, part of it is just academics and trying to find out things about how media works and how that influences them, which is not that practical. What we hope in the best case is that we can know more about misinformation, so wrong ideas that people have. To give an example, the people who smuggle them, they're called coyotes, they will often overplay the danger of law enforcement and underplay different dangers, right? So they will tell you, stay off the main roads so you won't get caught, and then pay me money to drive you there, and they'll take this major detours to the jungle. But there's a lot of other dangers there that can actually kill you, right? The migration officer will just send you back. So we want to try to tell people that we don't encourage them to start with, to do this, and I have no interest in that. But to try to tell the more safer ways of doing this. So you either get caught or you make it, but you don't end up dead. No, that's the main thing, or to consider the right reasons why you're leaving, and if you have the right expectations of what's going to happen to you. And that's why we work with this network of shelters, because they can actually use this information to help the people that they receive.
Wow. Well, definitely, my brother Tuur, man. I want to thank you again for coming on the show, for contacting me. Look, guys, Tuur reached out to me, and he wanted to voice his opinion, to voice his experiences on the show, because he felt that there just wasn't enough accurate information out there regarding what the people are actually experiencing and what's really happening on the ground. I'm sure there's some things that you might want to mention before we go, Tuur. Is there anything that I left out or that we didn't touch on that would be beneficial to the audience?
Well, no, this is all one variant of the good old theme of playing the elite, playing out vulnerable people against each other, right? And this is one variant of that. I will be interested to hear from your audience what kind of solutions they see to this in a bigger picture, right? As in solving or trying to increase the safety in these countries, maybe different economic policies, economic support to those countries or to Mexico. And I do want to mention that Trump has this idea that Mexico never cooperates with him, right?
Right.
Maybe that's the message I want to get out. First of all, this is factually not true. Mexican government, especially this and the last one, which are both right-wing governments, by the way, ideologically similar, they've been quite loyal in doing what US asks of them. But they can only do so if they don't lose their faith in doing so. So our president right now, Enrique Peña Nieto, he's kind of caught between two fires. On the one hand, Trump is barking at him and sending the military at him to solve problems that don't exist, like this caravan. Mm-hmm. So we can only give you like a fake capture of a caravan that never existed in the first place, which the government is good at. On the other hand, he can only do this if he can keep his head up, right? Because Mexicans, what they want primarily from US is respect. We don't care about the wall itself as long as we won't pay for it. We care about the symbolism. Basically, it's a 2,000 kilometer long middle finger pointing towards us. And people don't forget that. So Trump is making it very hard for Mexican government to comply with him, because they want to abide his wishes, but only if they can keep their head up, because it's elections this summer in Mexico. So Trump is making it very hard by disrespecting this president, asking him things while insulting him. This man cannot publicly give in to that, because that would be political suicide. So he has a very difficult situation for him. Wow. So if you want better relationships with Mexico, there should be more respect. And Mexico will probably comply, as they usually do with international law.
Wow. Wow. That's a very interesting... Another point I hadn't heard, Eli Ahern, he says, is it common for people to travel off the coast to get up north? If so, how does that usually turn out?
There are different routes. There's many routes. Some roads are coastal. Most of them go through the mainland. That's also the safest place to go to the mainland, because the cartel strongholds are on both coasts. So you don't want to take the east coast, for example. That's the worst scenario. If you follow the eastern coast, then you get to the territory of Los Zetas, which is one of the most violent criminal groups in the world. So it's advisable that they travel through the mainland, I would say. Also, our city is not on this coastal line, so I don't know about those people.
Well, like I stated before, this has been a very interesting conversation, Tuur, and I want to thank you and your wife as well for putting you in harm's way for this conversation. Should people contact you? Can they find copies of your research, or is this getting published, or where do we go to find out more?
It's not published yet. We have some conference papers in Spanish that are not that, but we plan in the future to write some books about this and to bring it out. People can read my work on poverty, which is a whole separate issue that I'm specialized in. I have some papers in English. If they Google it, they might find it.
Well, definitely, Tuur. If you send that to me, man, I'll help share it. I'll put it out on Facebook and Twitter for you if you need some help distributing it and letting people know that it's out there. I definitely will do that for you, brother. And, of course, if you publish something, man, we'll definitely bring you back on and tell people where to go get it. I mean, we appreciate your time.
No, thank you. Thank you for your audience.
You got it, brother. All right, guys, give it up for Tuur Ghys. I hope I'm saying that right. Dr. T. Thank you. Before we go, guys, I just want you to know this show is brought to you by you. You're the one who makes this show possible. I want to thank you all for supporting independent media, where we get the opportunity to talk about important issues like this and to bring on great guests with firsthand knowledge and also firsthand reports of what goes on in the real world, not what people who are paid lots of money are told to say by producers of shows, which is a big difference.